Remco Bromett up to lead us in our invocation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's pray together. Our God in heaven, at the beginning of this meeting, we pause to pray as we should. And we give thanks today for this beautiful spring day that reminds us that everything in your design is connected and cyclical, and that after preparation comes bloom and new vigor. It's that way in nature, it's that way in our lives, it's that way in our communities, and we give you thanks for that. And in that spirit, we pray tonight that you would pour out of yourself on everyone who is gathered here tonight. Give our mayor and council and city staff your wisdom and unity in heart and mind and spirit in every deliberation and decision on items on the agenda. We pray tonight that you would bless our firefighters and police officers and ambulance crews and anybody else that is ready to serve the community. Give them your protection and your strength. And we ask that your grace and peace and protection would rest on every home, every neighborhood, every business that calls this city home, so that we indeed may call ourselves, by the grace of God, a blessed city. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Remco. Tonight I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, April 10th, 2017 to order. We've got a number of special guests here. I would like to recognize Commissioner Bob Ellis from Fulton County. Thank you for being here. Also, we've got members of our team that were in charge of designing and building this facility. So I want you guys just to kind of sit back and look at it with fresh eyes and see it in use, because you won't see little paint touch-ups you need to look at or this or that. It's beautiful. So I hope you guys we're glad you're here and hope you enjoyed tonight. Sudi, if you'll please call roll and make general announcements.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the April 10th, 2017 regular meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment, either during the public hearing or during the call for public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on the item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards are received by the city clerk prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided that the individual has filed a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of the organization on a form provided by the city clerk. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman.
Here.
Councilmember Matt Kuntz.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Here.
Councilmember Bert Hewitt.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Here.
Councilmember Rick Morick.
Here.
Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and again, I welcome you here tonight. Sudi, if you will please call the next item.
Our next item this evening is approval of the meeting agenda, agenda item number 17080.
Okay, I would like to add an executive session to discuss two items under land acquisition. Anything else, anybody, staff or council? If not, I'll open up for a motion on the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda, adding an executive session for land acquisition discussion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Hewitt, second from Councilmember Morrig. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, our next item is public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. There's no discussion on the items on the consent agenda or first presentation from the public or from council. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk. Please remember, this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone stating your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes for remarks. Sudie, do we have any general public comment?
Yes, sir, we do. We have one from Mr. Kevin Wright.
Mr Mayor, councillors, my name is Kevin Wright. I'm visiting from Australia. I'm a councillor at my hometown of Cowra. Cowra is situated in the central part of New South Wales, which is the biggest state or the most populous state in Australia. Our small council is just a rural council with a population of 10,000 people. I'm in your fabulous city to visit my daughter, son-in-law and their 2 children who live up on Red Road in Milton. We hear so much from them about the wonderful life they're enjoying here in your city, and I'm very pleased to be here, and I must congratulate you and your councils on the presentation of your city and the state of your roads and facilities in general. To me, it's just mind-boggling coming from a small town where, you know, we just can't take things to the same standard that you've got here. Mr Mayor, I'm sure just a quick comment on Australia and the United States. You'd all be aware that Australia and the United States enjoy a very close alliance. A lot of things we see and do in Australia are strongly influenced by the United States. Sporting-wise, probably not so much, but generally we get all your movies and music and all that sort of stuff, and you'll hear it in every household in Australia. We, of course, have a lot of American visitors, and we find them fascinating and enjoy their company. Mr Mayor, I thank you for your hospitality here, getting around your town and visiting your restaurants and that. I find your citizens extremely friendly, big on service, very big on service, great service here. Food is fabulous. I'm sure I'll gain more weight while I'm here. And once again, I just thank you and your councillors for receiving me and allowing me to make a comment. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kevin, for being here. I hope that some of us or all of us one day would have the opportunity to visit your hometown and come see you in your council meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Sudie, do we have any more public comment?
That's all, sir.
Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. If you'll please read those items.
First item is approval of the March 6th, 2017 regular City Council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 17081. Next is approval of the March 20th, 2017 regular City Council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 17082. Our third and final consent agenda item, approval of the financial statements for the period ending February 2017, agenda item number 17083.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as prepared by staff.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passed. Next, we will have reports and presentations. Sudie, if you'll please call the first item.
This item is a proclamation recognizing those who made the new Milton City Hall possible. This is being presented by Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay. One of the first things I wanted to do when we first moved in here was to thank everybody that made this happen. But I was hesitant, and I'll say this tonight before I read this presentation, because although I'm going to recognize some companies and individuals as well as staff members, there are hundreds more that had a part of this. So we want to show our appreciation not only, from our elected officials and our city staff, but also our citizens. I tell people I say when you come in here for the first time, and again, my comment earlier, I know when you're on the design side or the construction side or furnishing side or implementing it, you're working on it and it's stressful and there's lots going on. But sometimes it's nice to come in later when everything's moved in and see it actually being used and people enjoying it and seeing it with fresh eyes. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. I tell people when they walk into our city hall, first thing they're going to say is, wow. And when I say that, I don't mean because it's really formal or fancy, but it's just really comfortable, and it really feels like Milton. And as you guys know that we're part of the team, from day one, we said we want to be a little different. We want to feel like Milton. We want to fit in so that people, that, you know, when they're here, they feel like they're in Milton. And it's been interesting to watch some of the other city officials come through that either, you know, have their facilities or folks that are looking for new ones and really seeing them, watching their eyes go around. So just want you to know everybody that had anything to do with this process should be very proud, and that we are very proud. So therefore tonight I want to give this proclamation. This is a proclamation in recognition of those who made the new City Hall possible. Whereas on March 13th, 2017, the doors of the new Milton City Hall officially opened for business at 2006 Heritage Walk in the heart of the Crabapple District. And whereas, after years of planning, designing, and eventual construction of the beautiful 32,000 square foot building, including a separate community meeting room, public bathrooms, and public plaza, which we now call home, and whereas public areas of the building were designed with the Milton community in mind, enabling our residents easy interaction with various city departments within the building, and whereas we would like to recognize the tireless efforts and sacrifices made by the individuals who participated in making this dream a reality. Whereas, and again, I said earlier, I'm going to be careful, I'm going to mention names, but that's not inclusive of everybody that's been a big part. Whereas, thank you to the architects Brian Parker, Venice Servin, Sean McClendon from Cooper Carey, who took our vision and designed this building by integrating historic Milton elements and creating an interior space that fosters collaboration between city departments and residents. And whereas, thank you to our construction managers and contractors, John Cullum and Huntley Gordon from New South Construction, for taking these designs and turning them into the attractive structure that we occupy today. And whereas, thanks to the furniture designers from Office Images, Kate Wilson and David Stella, for designing and building innovative furnishings, and thanks to John Menino from Hayworth for providing our furniture. And whereas, thank you to the entire Milton City staff for their diligence and sacrifice of personal time to ensure that no detail was overlooked, with special thanks to Assistant Manager Carter Lucas, City Architect Bob Buscemi, Community Development Director Kathleen Field, and IT Manager David Frizzle. And again, I say that only, but also want everybody to know there was, from all these names I just listed, there's 10 times as many folks that were involved and deserve credit too. Also want to thank Councilmember Lusk was a liaison between the council and working on this project too, as well as the council support, city staff support. You know, again, I think this is something that our citizens, I know I'm proud of it, our citizens should be proud, and the good news is, instead of leasing space that the rent kept going up, it actually was a smart financial move too, that the city will own this. So, therefore, we, the mayor and city council, hereby recognize the hard work, dedication, and perseverance of all individuals who made this Milton City Hall possible, and a place we are all proud to call home. And it's given under our hand and seal of the city of Milton, Georgia, on the 10th day of April 2017. And with that, I'd like to ask those involved in the team to step forward, as well as the council, to join me in presenting this proclamation. Okay, Sudi, if we can, we'll move on to our next item, and also Councilmember Lusk is going to present this, but another structure, and I won't call it a business, but an organization we have in our city that we're all very proud of, too. So, Sudi, if you'll call the next item.
Next item is a proclamation recognizing National Library Week. This is being presented by Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Thank you, Sudi. The construction project that preceded City Hall here, like the mayor was saying, was our Milton Library. Library was funded by a $275 million referendum that was passed in 2008 by the voters of Fulton County. And the design of it was a collaboration of the community here. It's probably the most unique library out of all of the 8 new libraries that were funded in that referendum. And at that time, there were a lot of people out there that asked the question, why do we need a new library here? They're becoming outmoded, outdated because of the use of the internet. Well, precisely, that's why this library has become most successful, as have other libraries in the system. The character of libraries has changed over the last several years. They've become more of a informational center that incorporates a lot of other different modes of retrieval of information, and it also provides a lot of services to the community, educational programs. And the Friends of the Milton Library, who is organized and representatives of her here tonight, support the unfunded programs of the library. Needless to say, a lot of government programs have been cut in their funding, and the Friends of the Milton Library is here to support a lot of these unfunded programs. But tonight we're here to read a proclamation commemorating National Library Week, which is this week. And with us tonight is our manager of the Milton Library, Kimberly Snoddy George, Emma Craitman, Ellen Baxter, Jason Blackstock, Jayutha D'Souza, Jeffrey Jackson, Wallace Tate, and also Mr. Paul Kaplan, who is not only a member of the Friends of the Milton Library, but he's the designated representative on the Fulton County Library Board from this district. And after I read the proclamation, and after Karen and I read the proclamation, we'd like to have not only all of the staff come up, but members of the Friends of the Milton Library come up to accept this proclamation. Proclamation for National Library Week. Whereas libraries are the heart of their communities, campuses, and schools, and
whereas librarians work tirelessly to meet the changing needs of their communities, from providing linguistically diverse literature and life skill classes to bringing services outside of the library walls, and
whereas libraries and all librarians bring together community members to enrich and shape the community and address local issues, and
whereas librarians are trained, tech-savvy professionals providing technological training and access to the downloadable content like ebooks, and
whereas libraries offer programs to meet community needs by providing residents with resume writing classes, homework help, financial planning services to teens applying for student loans, as well as retirement planning for older adults, and
whereas libraries continuously grow and evolve in how they provide for the needs of every member of their communities, and
Whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week.
Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Milton, hereby recognize National Library Week, April 9th through 15th, and encourage all of our citizens to visit the Milton Library this week to take advantage of all the wonderful library resources that are available. Given under our hand and seal of the City of Milton, Georgia on this 10th day of April 2017.
We'd all go down front.
You mind if I mention the county? No. And I want to just mention, one of our big partners and players in this was Fulton County. And again, as Bill was mentioning, libraries, a lot of folks would say, well, modern times, why do we need libraries? But obviously, it's been a great asset. But also, I want to thank the county for really working with us, because they came up here and they asked our opinion. And I think just as this city hall fits in here, everybody that uses the library or even drives by, they really notice a difference. And you can tell there was a lot of hard work put in by the county and their designers to give us a building that really fits in, that's beautiful and very pleasant to be in and to use. So Commissioner Ellis, Bob Ellis, that's here tonight from Fulton County, thank you guys very much for your for working with us to have something that we're all proud, both citizens of the county as well as the city. So
We'd all go down front. And Bob, if you would come up also, please.
Okay, Sudi, if you'll please call our next report and presentation.
Our next item is presentation of the City of Milton fiscal year 2016 annual audit. Mr. Tim Lyons with Malden and Jenkins.
Good evening. How are y'all tonight?
Good.
City Hall and libraries. I know everyone's really here just to hear about the audit, so we'll try to keep this as concise as possible for you guys. I'm going to be going through mainly the auditor's discussion and analysis, which I understand you all have an electronic copy of, but I also do have a copy of the financial statements with me if anybody has any specific questions that they want to ask while while I'm going through this. So the document that you have in front of you is the auditor's discussion and analysis. It is kind of what we prepare as sort of our summary of the audit. And starting on page 2, really is just a kind of a reintroduction of Malden and Jenkins and of myself. My name is Tim Lyons. I'm the engagement manager for the city's audit. I've been working with the city for a number of years now. Adam Fraley, who is the engagement partner, has also been working with the city for a number of years. And then we have a new senior on the team who's been with us for a couple of years now, and that's kind of the composition of the engagement team. The next few pages just kind of include some general information about us as a firm, and I think one thing we'd always like to highlight is that serving governments is something that we do a lot of. It's the biggest part of our firm, and so working with governments is not just a kind of a niche filler work for us as it can be with a lot of other firms, and so we really take a lot of pride in what we do. We work with a lot of the governments in the area, and so page 4, probably the most important part of the report, right? The audit report. For the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2016, we did issue what is called an unmodified or a clean opinion on the city's financial statements. Stepping back for a second, the city prepares what is called a comprehensive annual financial report, and I know you all probably all know that. We call it a CAFR, kind of the short lingo, but a CAFR is not a requirement. The city is actually required to do a lot less by the state law, but the city elects to go above and beyond in preparing a CAFR. It does include a lot more beneficial information to readers, and so I think it's important to commend the city, Bernadette, Stacy, for doing the CAFR, preparing a CAFR, because it is a much more significant undertaking than just doing what is required by state law. And as a part of that, the city submits their CAFR to the Government Finance Officers Association of the U.S. and Canada for participation in the Certificate of Achievement program. What you'll find in the current year, the 16 CAFR, is the certificate from the 15 report. We don't see any reason why. Through 11, we have some general charts that kind of get into some of the numbers, sort of summaries of the financial statements. I think probably the two that I'd like to point out, maybe just highlight tonight, would be on pages 10 and 11. As you can see, the last few years, the city has consumed a lot of its fund balance in the general fund, most of that for large capital projects such as this facility that we're in. As you mentioned, Mayor, earlier, doing this saves the city money also, but then you being able to use local funds that were in fund balance prevents long-term borrowing, which also is another saving cost. But at the end of the year, the general fund only had about 67 days of expenditures in fund balance, and typical like industry benchmarking would like to see a bit more than that. So for the last couple of years, if you see on page 11, that chart, we kind of, this is sort of our leverage chart. When you see those two lines diverging, that means there's kind of less of a cushion to handle any sort of a decrease or a change in timing of when revenues are collected. So probably the biggest thing to point out is just that situation at 9/30/16 with regard to fund balance and what's kind of been going on the last few years with some of the big projects the city has been doing. The next few pages summarize the footnotes. If you ever had a question about what's in the CAFR, where to find information about something, that's kind of a good, quick summary of what's in each of the footnotes. And then pages 14 through 17 get into what we refer to as the required communications. We submit all these to you all in writing, but it's the big things like we're independent of the city. The financial statements are the responsibility of city's management. We were engaged to audit them. We gave an opinion on them. We didn't have any disagreements with management, all that kind of good stuff. In the back of the CAFR is the report on internal controls and compliance. This is a report that we are required to produce for an audit that's done in accordance with government auditing standards. Really strict standards require us to evaluate any adjustments, any changes, anything like that was made to the financial statements. We had one audit adjustment this year that just happened to be over the threshold that government auditing standards requires us to report as a finding, but it really was just an adjustment to get a balance correctly reported no issues of fraud or anything like that. It was just a material adjustment that had to be made to book an accounts payable at year end that just got missed. So that is in the back of the CAFR in the compliance section is our whole report on controls and compliance. And then finally, what we have in the back of our auditor discussion and analysis, we'd like to give you all a heads up on accounting standards that are coming due in the next couple of years and the impact they'll have on the city's financial statements. Obviously, last year was the first year to report all the new pension stuff. That was a big one. Really, the biggest one that'll have an impact on the city's next CAFR is GASB Statement Number 77, which is on tax abatements. This is a pretty interesting standard that we're actually going through and implementing now with the 1231 governments. This is the first time. It is a non-financial standard in the sense that it won't change any of the numbers that are actually reported in the CAFR, but it will prompt a lot of new disclosures. And what the GASB is requiring you to disclose is any revenue streams that you have that either you, the primary government, the city had done, where they've done any sort of abatement program. They're required to disclose the amount of revenues that have been abated. They're also required to disclose the amount of revenues that have been abated by governments that like outside of the city that had an impact on the city's revenues, which would include Fulton County for y'all. So this is kind of a unique accounting standard. We're trying to make sure that everybody is aware of it well in advance of next year because it's going to take some legwork in talking with development authorities, tax assessors. These are the folks that typically have the information on these type of abatement programs, and so we're trying to encourage folks now to start these conversations, have these meetings so that all the information can be gathered and included in the report. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions that you have.
Any questions, Council? No question. Oh, yeah, Joe.
So like you said, you've been working with the city for a while, so you're familiar with what we do, how we do it, how we've been doing it, how we want to do it, all those good things. Were there any surprises in any of the preparation for for the CAFR preparation for this year?
Not really. I mean, as I alluded to it, we had the pension stuff was new for the first time last year. That was a big accounting standard. There were a couple of new ones this year that didn't have a significant impact on the cities. There was some changes in the way we had to disclose investments and that kind of stuff. From an audit perspective, the standards require us to what they call incorporate an element of unpredictability in the auditing procedures, and we do that every year. We try to catch Bernadette sleeping and sneak something in on her, but yeah, I mean, so. From that perspective, this year's audit, another kind of kudos to Bernadette and her team. This year's audit was done and issued faster. And like just the report date, everything was just done quicker this year. We knew that there was the need to have an audited CAFR available for some financing that I know the city was exploring or something like that. And so we worked hard to get it done quickly this year, and we were able to get that done. So.
Well, I just want to say, thank you very much.
Sure.
Our citizens, as well as us, should be proud that the city is financially solid and strong and spending our tax dollars, which they're all of ours, wisely. Also want to thank Stacy and your team and Bernadette and all your staff for everything you guys do. Goes, as well as all of our employees, but and staff members and department heads. But thank you for all your hard work, and we appreciate it. It shows. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Sudi, if you'll please sound the first presentation items.
First item is consideration of ZM 1701, 14505 Batesville Road, zoned AG1, with use permit by LRF Milton LLC, Little River Farms, to modify conditions 2A and 3B, U14-02, for relocation of parking lot and additional driveway to additional parking lot. Agenda item number 17084. Next is consideration of ZM 1702, VC 1702, 980 Birmingham Road, zoned C1 and AG1 by the Contaneo Group to modify condition 2A 2004Z-0043 to modify site plan for additional parking and move dumpster pad and a concurrent variance to allow parking past the building. Section 641323A, agenda item number 17085. Next is consideration of RZ 17-02, 12800, 12830, and 12850 Hopewell Road by Fuqua and Associates. 17 single-family lots on 14.6 acres at a density of 1.16 units per acre. Item number 17086. Next, our fourth item is consideration of RZ 17-03 to amend Section 64-418, pre-development notification and public informational meeting, and Section 64-4, definitions of the AG1 agricultural zoning district. Agenda item number 087. Next is consideration of RZ 17-04 to amend Section 64-141, pre-development notification and public informational meeting, and Section 64-2, definitions of the R1 residential zoning district. Agenda 17-088. Next is consideration of RZ 17-5 to amend Section 64-464, pre-development and public informational meeting, and Section 64-465, definitions of the R2 residential zoning district. Agenda item number 17089. Our first presentation item is consideration of RZ 17-06 to amend Section 64-487, pre-development notification and public informational meeting, and Section 64-488, definitions of the R2A residential zoning district. Agenda item number 17090. Next is consideration of RZ 17-07 to amend Section 64-2453, creation of a historic preservation commission to allow compensation for meetings. Agenda item number 17-091. Next is consideration of revisions to plat process, Chapter 50 subdivisions. Agenda item number 17092. Our final first presentation item is consideration to amend Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 3, Planning Commission, Section 2-206, Duties. Agenda item number 17-093.
Okay. And for those that are really picking up on this, and Keith, let you know if you're still here 2 weeks from now, we're going to have a really long meeting that night. Do I have a motion and a second?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the reading of the first presentation items as presented by staff.
Second that.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Thurman, second Councilmember Kuntz. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, we don't have any items under a public hearing or a zoning agenda, so we'll move to unfinished business. Sudi, if you'll please sound that item.
This item is consideration of an ordinance accepting the revised Georgia Municipal Employees Benefit System, Defined Benefit Retirement Plan, and General Addendum. This is agenda item number 17-077. First presentation was at the March 20th meeting. Mr. Sam Traeger.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you recall, at our last meeting, we approved some benefit plan design changes for our employees. And this is sort of the last bit of housekeeping that follows up with that. It's an amendment to our pension plan, and it has to be done via ordinance. And it basically covers two things. It covers allowing vacation and PTO leave that exceeds the accrual limit at the end of the year to be transferred as service credit going forward for each employee. It also reduces our actuarial tables from 3% per year to 2% per year for those who are retiring before the age of 65. If there are any questions that I can answer for you on these changes, I'd be happy to.
Okay, are there any questions?
How many people do we actually have now that are still members of that still participate in the defined benefit plan as compared to the defined contribution plan we currently have?
I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head. I'll be happy to get you that data.
Joe?
So saying when you say unused time could be transferred as service
Credit.
credit?
Yes, sir. So in other words, every year, at the end of the year, for example, in admin employees, you can carry over up to 240 hours. So at the end of the year, if I have 299 hours in my bank, I can roll those 59 hours as service credit going forward. So I get an extra week of vacation or week of service credit. So if I retire with 10 years of service, I'd have 10 years in 1 week. It's a little bit more for firefighters because a lot of those, we reduce that accrual rates pretty considerably for them. So they'd be rolling over a larger number every year because we're allowing them to keep that number that they currently had going forward, but they're able to use less vacation. So it just increases basically service credit and the amount of time you would have effectively with the city when we calculate pension benefits.
Okay. I mean, does that, if they, let's just pretend for a second they needed 20 years of service to retire. Does this impact that?
No, it does not. They still
Okay.
have to hit 20 years.
All right.
But if
just-
they have an extra 2 weeks in the bank or a month in the bank, they'd retire at 20 years in 1 month.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. I'll open up for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 17-077.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Hewitt, seconded by Councilmember Thurman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimous, Sudi.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, we'll move on. Sudi, will you please sound the next unfinished business item?
Next item is consideration of an ordinance creating the Milton Green Space Advisory Committee, MGAC, agenda item number 17068. First presentation was at the March 6th City Council meeting. It was discussed at March 13th City Council work session. I do have one public comment. Do we want to hear this later or now?
I'd be fine hearing it now, if it's okay with the council.
Sure.
That way, the presentation may be able to address it. Okay.
And that's Mr. Tim Becker.
Tim Becker, 15625 Canterbury Chase, Milton, Georgia. Good evening, Council. I've been closely watching the discussion around the formation of the Green Space Acquisition Committee, and frankly, we are overcomplicating the matter and unfortunately losing a lot of time. It has been 5 months since the bond passed, and a committee has yet to be formed. The city's default for committee appointments is for each council member to appoint one member of the committee. This is a good model. It is simple and ensures accountability on the part of the appointing council member. If we deviate from this model, there needs to be a good reason. The current proposal, whereby a slate of candidates is debated by council behind closed doors, is an inferior approach. It is non-transparent, lacking in accountability, lacking in courage, and not citizen-centric. First, the currently proposed approach diffuses accountability among all council members. Second, it takes power away from citizens and concentrates it in council. I am certain that in 2017, we will have at least one competitive city election. Elections have consequences. And if we have a new council member, that means citizens have voted for a change. Denying a new council member the right to replace his predecessor's appointee effectively diminishes the voice of citizens. The Green Space Bond involves a lot of taxpayer money. It demands maximum accountability to citizens. That is best achieved by each council member appointing the best committee member that he or she can find and holding that committee member accountable, rather than hiding behind a non-transparent process that diffuses responsibility and subverts the will of citizens as expressed through the ballot box. Let's quit dawdling on the appointment of this committee and get it done already. One appointee for each council member. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Sudi? Or Kathleen?
Ms. Kathleen Johnson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm presenting for your review and consideration tonight an ordinance creating the Milton Green Space Advisory Committee. The ordinance was discussed at the March 13th work session, and there was only one change made since then, which was based on a suggestion by Councilmember Thurman. That is on page 3. On your handout, and I will just read that change. 2M, no city council member shall enter into any closed or executive session of MGAC unless the executive session is a duly called joint executive session of the MGAC and the city council. There were no other changes from the last meeting, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments you might have right now.
Okay, yeah, let's open up for questions or comments. Bill? No? Joe?
Kathleen. So some time has passed, and I actually thought we had had an opportunity to talk about this again, but I'm sort of glad that we haven't, because I've been thinking about this committee composition quite a bit. Can you refresh my memory and explain why you think it's important for us to abandon the normal mode under which we create committees in the city?
First of all, this committee is about a bond for $25 million, which that in itself is a very different action of any of our other committees, because it is $25 million. And I have researched many different similar committees in different areas of the country, and many of those committees are chosen in a way that opens applications up to the whole community in order to get the best qualified candidates that have qualifications such as a finance background, a real estate background, business backgrounds, conservation backgrounds, all different types of backgrounds that an individual council member might not know a person that has that exact background, and to open up the application to all the citizens in this community allows for those people to apply, and then the council to choose the best qualified candidate from that pool. And it is also one of the best practices of in land conservation committees to do it in this way.
But I mean, that doesn't necessarily eliminate how we pick individuals. In other words, if we had a list of skill sets that we were looking for on a committee, there's nothing to say we couldn't fill that with representatives from every single district, right?
I get, yes.
I mean, so this process that we've put into the document isn't the only way to get there, is my point. We could just as easily get there by using the method that we've always used and selecting representatives from every single district and post.
It is possible to do that if you can find those candidates. With the discussion in the several times we've discussed this, I felt that the council wanted to, the majority of the council wanted to do this in a different way because it is such a different type of committee with this $25 million bond. So it was important enough to get people with specific qualifications, like I said, to open it up to the community to find those qualifications in those individuals.
So there was very little communication other than the official communications for notifying voters about the bond, what the bond amount was going to be. We couldn't really go into a lot of the details on how we were going to use the funds that we raised. In other words, we were very limited in what we could say, least we set the wrong set of expectations. And it's expectations really that I want to talk about, because when a citizen of Milton cast a ballot to spend $25 million for something, how do you think they expected us to manage that process? Because I would argue pretty strongly that they expected the council to be directly responsible for it, and they would expect us to manage that whole process the the way we've managed every single other process within the city. And so I worry a little bit that we're throwing them a curveball by changing that after the fact. They've cast their ballot. They voted to spend $25 million, which is not an insignificant amount. Every single one of these individuals that voted for this are going to be taxed. And so I just want to make sure that we're following what their expectations were and that we're providing the appropriate amount of representation for those, to be in line with their expectations.
Well, I do want to say that with the setup of this committee, the council always has the final say in what land will be acquired. It's just the committee that's going to do the background, the research, and all the footwork, the legwork on it, and then present it to the council. And the council will have an opportunity to look at and discuss, approve, or deny their recommendations.
Right.
And
we can vote on anything the committee puts forward. Mm-hmm. We can't vote on anything the committee doesn't put forward. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. Therein lies the problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say during, even though we were limited on what we could say or not, what we would use the funds for by state law, I will say, we did spend months with the Planning Commission coming up with a list of criteria, factors, tools that was all from public input. All of those criteria were directly from the public. We had several Planning Commission meetings, and every one of those things were written from public comment, not only in the meetings themselves, but through emails, through surveys, through as many different ways that we could get the opinion of the public. And then we came up with the set of criteria, tools, factors, all that will govern the decisions on which parcels of land will be acquired either by fee simple or by easement. So there is guiding criteria that was set up by the public that will be used by the committee when they determine what they're going to recommend to you. And also, when we discussed this first, the setup of the committee, in our charter, the default position is for each individual, as the city attorney can discuss as well, for each individual council member to appoint a person to a committee. There is also the opportunity in that charter that you can do otherwise by ordinance, which is what we chose to do here. We're discussing here is to do it a different way than by each member of the council appointing. So there is a different way to do
right,
that.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we're doing anything that would violate any of the laws that we need to follow. I didn't mean that at all. What I meant was we run the city a certain way, and here we have one of the biggest decisions the city has made since its inception, and all of a sudden we decide we're going to manage this decision differently, which I just think is a little bit interesting. So,
let me address that too. And this goes way back, conversations way back, and I would agree. We have to public comment on it. I see your point, Joe. Easiest thing would be just have everybody pick a person, and each council member and mayor for the committee. I asked the question way back to staff. I said, obviously that'd be the easier way. That's the way things have been done, a lot of things. Obviously a new city, sometimes you have the luxury of not doing the way things have always been done. But I said, go research. This is a very important item. Go research what the best way to do it is. And I almost liken this a little different than most of our committees that, typically a council member or mayor picks someone that thinks on the same wavelengths as them, maybe someone they know, they feel like they represent them. To me, this is almost, since we're spending $25 million of taxpayer dollars, we want to take this is like an audit. This is like our auditors. Nothing against CPAs and auditors, but whether we like this, the guys or not, they're looking at numbers, they're looking at facts, they're making decisions with no emotions involved, no personalities, whatever. From my opinion, and that's why I asked our staff to look at, and Kathleen, go back and look everywhere else, see what the best way to do this is to keep it totally clean, to spend that money wisely the smartest way. So, that's why it's been brought back up. That doesn't, again, that doesn't mean it's set in stone, but that's that's my position on that, is that, you know, rather than, this is, we're spending a lot of dollars. It needs to be done totally professional, and kind of almost arm's length, and then it all comes back to the council to make the decisions. But Karen?
Yeah, I agree. I think that this committee is very different from other committees, even though we do have the Milton Grows Green and MDAC that both are not based on, you know, an appointee per council position. I think it's the most important thing is we get a group on this committee that has the backgrounds that we need them to have and that can work together to achieve our goal. I don't want a member of the committee that feels like they have to worry about whether or not they're pleasing me and that they're going to be replaced if they do something that, you know, is not what I want them to do. I want a committee that totally thinks on their own and does what they believe is best for the city of Milton, not for any one particular council member. And so that's why I really believe that this way we make sure that we got people that fill all the qualifications we need, or if not, we'll have to hire somebody to fill those qualifications among the committee members. You know, it may be we have 5 committee members that are qualified. We maybe have 9 that are qualified. Doing it this way allows us the flexibility to decide how many we want to have on the committee based on the qualified applicants that we actually receive. So I really think this is a much better way to make sure the council stays totally out of all the politics. I've said over and over again, to me, the most important thing about this committee is the fact that they do what's best for the majority of residents in the city of Milton, and that politics is not involved. And I think if you have a council member appointing a person, you're going to have politics involved.
And when I'll just add one point to that, to Karen, what Karen said, we also need professional, you know, we may need to support it with some professionals that, you know, from the outside. I mean, this, like I said, this is important stuff that maybe somebody that, a professional from the outside looks at it and also gives their input too, to supplement people on this committee.
Right.
Joe?
But I mean, Milton is nothing else if it's not a city populated by professionals. We got professionals all over. I mean, there's a reason our median income and the quality of living in our city is so high. It's because we have a lot of qualified people that live here that do big jobs and make big decisions and get paid big dollars to do all that kind of stuff. And so I don't see that these are incongruous. So to me, we can fill a committee that's very capable and qualified to do this job the way we always have. I've never found a problem finding the right person to fill a committee spot in my district. I mean, if you look at all the committees that we have, Milton Grows Green and MDAC being the 2 exceptions there, because like you said, Karen, we don't necessarily populate those with any kind of appointment. We've done a great job putting people in place. We've got highly functional committees making these kinds of decisions all the time. So I don't understand why we think that this is so different that we have to get away from these rules. And I'll support anybody who wants to give up their opportunity to appoint somebody to a committee in order to put somebody in there that's qualified appropriately, as long as it's a decision that every single council member gets to make. Because that just seems like an expectation. I certainly had that expectation when we started working on this a year ago. And we didn't talk about this, we didn't do anything about it until after the bond was passed. And so I sort of think that we need to stick to the way we get things done.
Okay, Bert?
A couple of things. I think, unfortunately, whether it's appointed committee or a pool, you know, application, I think it's going to be chock full of politics. Either way you cut it. And I too would like to see somehow, however we work this out, that there's representation from the 3 districts ensured on this committee. It's only 3 districts. It's not 7 anymore. So we could at least get representation from every geographical corner.
And that was the one point I was going to make too. On page 2, item H, I just want to make sure that we in fact have at least one member. We're not quantifying or saying limited to how many people will be on this committee, but I think in fairness to all citizens in all parts of the city, We, in fact, want to have at least one member per district to ensure that we've got representation.
And I will say on the application, of course, people have to put their address on there. So that can be looked at when you're looking at the application based on the address and which district that they're from.
And I would say, and I think in theory, I agree with that. You know, we want to have a broad representation of the city. But it may be something where there may be a district that there's not someone interested, or there's much better qualified candidates that maybe we could at least have the flexibility to discuss. Bill?
And I do think in 2H, it says that they're not required to reside in a specific council district, but when you all look at the applications, of course you are open to looking and saying we want to put, you know, picking from those applications the people, at least someone in each district, have the flexibility to do that under this provision as well.
Comment on what the previous speaker brought up and what you've brought up also, Kathy, is we're talking about $25 million here at stake, and essentially it's initially in the hands of those on the committee to come forth with proposals. I believe this committee here rises obviously to a lot higher level than, say, no casting no aspersions on the equestrian committee, for example. We're talking about a lot of money here. However, we've already set forth in your application here the qualifications that we're looking for on this particular committee. You've enumerated them: finance, land planning, engineering, so forth. We have not really done that on any of the other committees that we've had here, with maybe the exception of the equestrian committee, where we have specific characteristics of those who should be on that particular committee. This is going to be a composite of a lot of different experiences and educational backgrounds. We have not done that on these other committees. We have not come forth and stated, or at least appointed people on a lot of these other committees that have relevant experience. And you can go down and look at them. I think we really need to demand that we have these types of experience, number one. And secondly, in your application, you've stressed the fact that this is going to be time-consuming. There's going to be a lot of time dedicated to researching these different properties. And part of the application is that these people need to swear up front that they're committed to devote the time to it. And I've been following a couple of these commissions and committees here in the last year or so, tracking attendance records. And these are all fine people. And as Joe Wood pointed out, we have a lot of professionals here in Milton. But what that brings about, too, are a lot of people who travel a lot and can't make meetings. And that's the kind of dedication, I think, that is really primary, first and foremost, in this type of committee here. And we can't operate with 2 or 3 people that come on various nights. We can't tolerate not having a quorum, canceling meetings, and I've seen that on a lot of these different commissions and committees. This is pretty serious stuff. And yes, we have languished in getting this thing up and running, but I think we have a solid program here on how to identify and assemble a knowledgeable commission here to deal with this issue. And I think we need to go forward with it. As far as transparency all goes, I don't think you get any other jurisdiction in this part of the state that's more transparent than we are. I think we've got a good plan here, and I think we need to stick with it. Let's get this thing up and moving. I would ask how many applications you have at this point in time.
Right now, I have 17, with one person considering, additional person considering applying.
Okay, and I understand from the city manager that this review is going to take place here shortly.
The plan is next week.
Okay.
Let me kind of address, I think, and I believe everybody's closer than maybe some of the discussion goes. And then, Matt, you're welcome to, anybody else wants to speak. I certainly understand getting representation from all sides of the city. So, again, maybe there'll be some flexibility in there where, all things being equal, we want to pick people from all three different, so that every district is represented. The other thing I think is as has been said, to keep the politics out. If I think Karen said, sometimes if each person picks somebody, there might be some politics. Everybody said that. We don't mean for there to be. If it's a slate of individuals, we all have the ability to vote on them, discuss it. Also, if a council member has someone they feel very important that would be a good asset, they certainly can ask them to apply.
Yes,
and that way they'll be in the pool. Also, if we adopt them as a slate, it's not like, well, hey, I'm adopting so and so and so. It's the city as a whole is putting you on that committee. And to the other thing that's been mentioned, this is granted, all of our committees are very important and do a great job and make Milton what they are, but some aren't as tangible as others. Some it's about a look and a feel. Some it's about, I'll appoint somebody that I think represents my position and what I think the citizens want. Karen may have somebody totally different. This is like going and, when you need a heart surgeon, you want the best qualified person, whether they live in Johns Creek or Milton or your next door neighbor or the other side of town. So I think we've got to blend it all together like that, so that we're spending, taxpayer dollars. We want it to go. We want it to be as efficient and get the most bang for the buck for the city of Milton and be handled as professional as possible. So, what I'm kind of hearing is if we could have this committee where there's enough flexibility, where, like I said, get representation from the city. Obviously, the council is going to be voting on the group of people, which in turn could be the same as if you appointed somebody individually. You just ask them to apply, and then that'll kind of wash out through the vetting process. So I don't know that we're that far off. Is anybody? I know, Matt, you want to say something?
Yeah, just I think everybody here in my mind is right on what they're talking about in some areas. My major concern is the phrase from American history is no taxation without representation. And that's because that definitely brings in politics, regardless of what the situation was. I mean, that started the Boston Tea Party. So, where are we? I was with you, Joe, on this as well. And trying to be open to what's going on. And I could easily abandon this and go with what you were talking about and just say, vote no and go with what we had been doing. But I did want to look at and see, and I understand what Karen's point is and making sure we want to bring in qualified people to make that determination too. That doesn't mean that we can't bring qualified people in as our appointees, right? But the thing is, and the reality is as Bill had mentioned, is sometimes we have people that come in and it's a blanket approve them. None of us vet each other as appointees on anything as far as that goes. Maybe we should. We just don't do it. And that's, I think that's an element of being cordial to each other more than anything else. There's some situations in that. But in this particular situation, if there was a propensity for us to vet people that more significantly than we had in the past, then I'd be willing to stay with what we were doing. So the question is if we get good qualified people that are coming in, do we then still represent? That's the question I was asking on my end. And I won't vote for it in my mind unless I think that a slate has equal geographic representation amongst the districts. For my accountability to the constituents that elected me, I want to make sure that they have that representation in that committee geographically, because I think that represents the mindset and the framework of those people that we live closest to in our resident areas. Doesn't mean that we're not all Milton residents, doesn't mean we don't think generally the same, but in certain geographic areas there might be different things that can go either way. And so from that perspective, my accountability depends on the very vote of that slate that is in there, whether or not there is that. And that's why I've been constantly talking about the geographical aspect of it. The other area where we have representation is in the final offering of whatever project comes before us on any piece of land. And if that piece of land, in my mind, is right for the benefits of the city of Milton, then we still have that obligation to vote for that at that point in time. The crazy part is because we're dealing with land negotiations, there's executive session items and is not as public as what everybody sees in other issues. But still, from where I am, would I be comfortable standing in front of my constituency as their representative and saying, here is why I'm voting for this piece of land, and still be accountable? Absolutely. We'll still be accountable in that situation. So I try to figure out what other examples of a committee like this would be, and I really just had to look at our state level, because you might have elected representatives from different areas of the state on a committee hashing out a situation that other representatives may not have anything to do with or any knowledge of, but yet they still have that offering presented by a separate committee, and then they're still accountable to the rest of the state for how they vote. So I think we still have that representation in this process. That was my concern because of our voting on the slate and the voting on the original properties. But if I don't think that the slate benefits the constituency of the city of Milton, and especially those areas in the geographic area where I live and represent, I won't vote for it. And that is my accountability that's how I'm approaching this. It's a compromise, I agree, but that's just my thinking on it.
Sure.
One quick thing. I'm not concerned as much about what district a person lives in as I am concerned about geographic area that they live in. I don't think that the people who live on the north side of Wood Road think that differently than the people that live on the south side of Wood Road, and they're in two totally different districts. But I think that we need to make sure we have somebody from a lot of the different geographic areas of the city represented. Regardless of what district they're in, we need to make sure. I would like to see, when y'all actually look at the applications, to have a map and actually pinpoint on that map where everybody lives, so that you kind of know where, what areas are covered and what areas aren't. Because like I said, north side of Wood Road and south side of Wood Road are two different districts, and they usually think alike.
I think what we all owe our citizens in our respective districts, but also we have to look at the whole city, which is what we represent. And I think what our neighbors, each individual in our districts, what they want what's right for Milton. So, and I hate to use the analogy of going back to a doctor, but they want us to have the right decisions made, or have the committee that can make the right decision for the city. If you're looking for a doctor, you don't say, well, I just want one in my neighborhood that lives near me. I want one that's the best in the field. So I think we've got to balance that a little bit. And to Matt's point and Joe's, we may look at the slate and say, well, if we spread it out and it's from each district or whatever, but then we're leaving the experts out, or someone that's a better qualified. I think we have the need to have the flexibility to, discuss that and put the people in there that we think will serve our district, each district the best. So.
And I have made recommendations to people that might want to be on this committee, and honestly, I don't even know if they submitted an application, but it was just something that's, where we are, we can do that.
Joe?
Yeah, I think we're all agreeing. We're just agreeing a little bit differently, okay? Because I can tell you, we can solve this problem using the model that we always have. There is nothing that precludes, that makes one incompatible with the other. And if we're saying that there is, let me tell you, we've got problems, because the Design Review Board, the Planning Commission, the Equestrian Committee, they deal with the same level of problem. They deal with the same level of money, okay? It's just that they're not writing checks that go out of those committees. They're making decisions that influence what happens to land, how people can develop it, how the business of boarding horses and building stables and riding arenas gets done. It's just a little bit different. Those committees are every bit as important. They deal with probably more political issues than this committee ever will. And yet we managed to figure that problem out and solve it using the way the city was set up. So So why did we jump to the conclusion that this committee was going to be so different? I don't get that. I agree it's going to be dealing with something that's different than the other committees. Otherwise, why would we need yet another committee? It's going to be different. They're talking about how we manage green space. But that doesn't mean we can't find qualified people living in our districts. And to your point, Matt, about vetting, I would agree. We have an opportunity to vet and we don't use it. When somebody comes up for a vote on this council and it's somebody that I present, that's our opportunity to vet. And we're all very nice people, so we just assume that the other person has done their homework and they're not going to present somebody that's not qualified. But that's a sort of a shame on us kind of a thing. So I could see us melding those two things together. I could see us having 7 people that are appointed and 5 people that we add to the slate, or 3 people that we appoint and 6 people that we add to the slate. I mean, there's a solution that keeps us with an alignment in terms of appointees and representation of these districts, and I think it's critical that we do that.
Okay. And I agree, but again, this goes back to, my question early on was, because Joe, this is different. All our other committees make decisions that affect the city and affect the way the city look, but they're not spending taxpayer dollars. When a planning commission makes a decision on a zoning or whatever, that's the private individual. This committee and this group is going to actually spend taxpayer dollars, which is it's the opposite. And also, so again, that's why I had said it'd be very easy just to everybody pick one person and put the committee together. But again, I wanted to, and that was my question early on to staff was, look all over the country, what is the best way to do it? It may not be the easiest way, and it may be harder to do, but what's the best way to do it?
To your concern, that is what I did, and in all of the communities in the United States that have things like this, there's studies done and compilations, and the majority, a big majority of those communities did not do it per council person, choose a committee member. It was a pool of applicants, and that is why when I presented this months ago, that was my recommendation based on that research and based on all the communities in the nation that have done this. And so to your question as to where this came from, that's where this came from this research and from the best practices also that have been compiled on it as well. The idea also, best practices, was to depoliticize it, and the best way to depoliticize it in the best practices is to ensure that each council member does not choose an individual person, but they vote on it as a whole from the pool. That's where it came from.
Let me clarify too, and and I think this may be a win-win. Everybody has access to the folks that have already applied. It's probably seen the list. There's time for, if you had someone you were going to pick and you think is, obviously encourage them to put in there. When the slate is done, if it looks from each individual council member here, if it looks like it's slided, hey, we're not being represented in my area or whatever, we're going to discuss that and it can be changed. Matt said, you don't have to vote on it unless everybody equally feels that it's the right thing for the city. So, I think we can kind of get there, get the equal representation, but also keep it on a professional level. Matt?
Just from a example perspective, I know you've done the research, but remind us again some of the problems or what went wrong when there were individual appointees appointed to committees like this when you did your research.
In some of the case studies, some of the citizens felt like that individual council persons, might have a parcel of land within their district that they wanted that parcel bought in their district to create more in green space in that specific district. And that was kind of the political thing. Like, I'm going to appoint this person so I get something in my district chosen and acquired. And that's the political side. And then someone else might not have, a parcel in their district. So that's where the politicalization of that comes from, and the thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think too, you can add, let's say you have, I'll use Matt for an example, just as a discussion. Let's say you've got a person that you would pick, and that person wants to, and you encourage them to apply, and they're on that. But with the council voting on them as a slate, they're not going to feel, and you're not going to feel, hey, well, I'm on here just because Matt voted me in. I'm on here for the whole city to equally look at it. And again, I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. I don't think anybody intentionally is going to feel that way. That, you know, some of the things, Kathy, you brought up, but it just eliminates any thoughts like that. Hey, this board, we've been appointed by the council as a whole, and it's not any individual. I'm not, you know, looking out for one area or another. I'm looking out for the city as a whole. But.
And I will say, because it is an open application process, because we did it this way, if a council person has a specific person in mind that they would have appointed, they absolutely have the opportunity to go and ask that person, please go apply, I would like you to apply, and that person would be one of the applicants. So that is definitely flexibility.
And then the council can see where that person ranks, too. They may,
right.
You know, I may have somebody in mind I would pick and ask them to apply, and they apply, but then I look at all these other, well, you know, I think this person would be better suited or whatever. But, Bill, I think you had.
True. We approved this 5 months ago, and I think it was at least 3 months ago we had this very discussion. And I think at that time we gave you directions to proceed like that, to research different jurisdictions throughout the country to determine what the common procedure was in a commission or committee like this. And I can't believe we're sitting here 5 months later rehashing this thing again. I think we set the wheels in motion. You've got 17 applicants out there, probably, and I'm not sure what their qualifications are. I would hope that they all comply with the list of different fields that they're in, and I'd look forward to sitting down after you've vetted those yourself and come into a council session to determine who's best suited for this particular commission. And to stress another point about our current commissions and committees out there, as far as having my major, I guess, point is attendance at these meetings, or even filling seats at these meetings or these commissions. And I would venture to guess that there are at least 2 committees out there that lack a full complement of 7 people on board. And we've gone through several months with those committees without seating people too. So I think this process here that you've come up with is probably the best approach, not only to fill this commission, but maybe we need to adopt it for all of these other committees and commissions out there. Several years ago, we talked about putting out a general solicitation for people who were interested in the different committees and commissions within the city. And I'm not so sure that we've followed through on that. If we have a database of people that are interested in Planning Commission or DRB or any of the other commissions out there, I would say if we do have that database, maybe we're not drawing upon it. We still have vacant seats on some of these committees out here. So I think we've taken a real proactive approach in going after qualified people for this particular commission, and I think there's no reason to stop this train now. We've got a lot of momentum up here. Let's get on with the program, and let's go to the next step and start selecting these folks.
I'm going to make a suggestion, then I'll allow a couple more comments, but that, you know, this certainly, we've all talked about it, and it's good and bad. I'm going to make a suggestion. If somebody wants to make a motion to approve this, they can also add in, you know, one of our requirements in there that we look at it to balance it, to make sure that, you know, all things being equal, it is represented by districts equally. Now, granted, I think we all, you know, put on incumbent on us making the decision if there are if it doesn't balance out exactly, but it's the best qualified people, we need to discuss that too, and keep that in consideration. But have that as one of our checklists when you put the slate together. All things being equal, we try to spread it out across, geographically. And to Karen's point, some of it's more geographically than exactly borderlines. We're all Milton citizens, and everybody should care about the same thing. But
So is that, I'm sorry, is that equal representation you wanted for each district, or just that at least one person is from each district?
that would be one of the criteria that you look at when you're forming the slate of people.
And
now
I would
it's not
prefer
set
it
in
not be
stone.
district, but geographic areas of the city.
spread it out
Yeah,
over
we want
the
to make
city.
sure that all areas of the city are represented. I'll make the motion
And
if
again,
you want me to.
well, I'm just throwing it out there. We've got a couple comments, and we'll go for a motion. Joe and then Rick.
Steve, so you sent an email to us earlier today with all the people that have applied for the position. Do you know what the breakdown is by district?
I do. Currently, we have 3 for District 1, 11 for District 2, and I believe 3 for District 3.
So there could be equal depending on how it shakes out. It's not like there's not a district that's being left out. Now, I will make a comment. That's pretty good. I've got to give Steve a hand for being in this job, since almost a year? He knew the answer to that question. he was he's got the council figured out. All right, Rick?
Do we have a deadline for the application process? If we put out a deadline when we want people to apply by?
So we did put out, the communications director put out some information saying we will be reviewing applications this week and next. It wasn't a hard deadline. It was just that we were going to start reviewing applications. That can be changed if you want to, have that period longer, or.
No, let's keep going.
But I will suggest this: if we move forward in this direction, that every council member that has anybody that they had in mind or they've talked to that thinks there's a desire to want to do it, please reach out to them and have them apply. And again, then that'll kind of prove it. Just see how that all stacks up. So, Rick, I think you had your hand up.
Yep. Again, I've listened to the discussion go back and forth. I would like to see us, it's good to make sure that we have representation by district. I know we talk geographic area, but we sometimes landmass, one of the districts may be a little bit smaller. We just need to make sure, as far as geographic area-wise, because of condensed population, we need to make sure that we actually have representation when this whole team looks at what lands are appropriate to acquire. Because I think people that are paying taxes in every district, even though we're not going to say you get one here, one there, I think as we look at the parks and rec and trails and green space, we want to make sure that we actually are looking at the full city in how this committee is taking a look. And I think the one way you do that is make sure that you do have representation from those different districts so those people can speak up and say, well, let's look at the properties over in this area. But it's not a tit for tat. But I do think that's what having representation within district, at least make sure that we have the 3 districts represented. I'm not so concerned about having to appoint my own person, because I think if we have representation and then we sit down and it's already been vetted as far as the standards, we get to look at this collectively as a council and look at all what the people come forward, what their skill set is, and look and make sure that we've got a good balance. I almost look at it's like a business unit. It's a committee, but these folks, frankly, are making decisions on what property to go look at, what prices, fair prices. There's a lot of stuff that's going to go into this. This is not just like a standard committee talking about the general direction of the city. These are specific things that will be time sensitive too. And to your question about elongating the application process, I'm not for that. I just think we may want to just do one last pass or put out and say, it's going to close. The application process is closing as of this. So if you're interested, please apply by this date. And then we can you guys go through and we review this, we think we still don't have the right set, then we maybe go back out. But for right now, I think we've got a good set, a good process. I'm comfortable with doing it this way. And again, even as far as when we actually approve properties to be acquired, the whole council is voting on it. So you've got a collective group that we all vote on to appoint. So, and we are doing more vetting, I think, in this process collectively. And then also with the property, we get a choice. We get to have our vote when we look at the properties they bring forward and say, yes, we think this is a good decision collectively for the city.
Okay. All right, Bert?
How many people, can you remind me, that you think is going to be on the committee?
That we have not decided on that. That is left open on this ordinance. And as discussed by the council, you wanted to see how many you had and how many qualified to determine what that number is.
I'm going to jump in
just
if
that
I
it's
could.
an odd number.
Can I jump in, please? I just want to make sure we have a meeting of the minds on this. Staff is only going to go through this list of applications to determine who's qualified. The only ones we're going to pull off are ones that clearly don't fit the qualifications. If 17 fit the qualifications, you're going to have 17. So we're not predetermining any panel. We're not predetermining any numbers. It's clear. It's in number 4. We're not creating that panel. If you all determine that, if we pass 17 on to you, and you determine that 17 is the right number, that's going to be the number.
Or 7 or whatever. Joe?
But Steve, what qualifications do they need other than being a citizen of the city?
We had a list of qualifications that went out with the application.
No. That's not my point. My point is what qualifications they need other than being a citizen of the city.
I can go through. I don't know if it's in the ordinance here. Or
So you're telling me that my district is populated by people that aren't qualified to be on this committee, and I'm not talking about minors.
I don't think that's what he's
understand where
saying.
you're coming from that.
What I'm saying is, what qualifications do you need to be on this committee?
You, as a board, we're looking for, as a
set.
council, we're looking for certain prerequisites, and that was put out in the application.
No, I get that, guys.
I think what he's saying is it would be nice if y'all don't say either yes or no, they're not qualified. I have a feeling if you did that, all 17 were going to be qualified. I think it would be nice if you could say, okay, this group of people have these set of qualifications that could be beneficial to the committee.
I almost see a ranking.
Yeah.
You rank them. You know, we see them all, but you.
And it doesn't have to be ranked 1 through 17. It could be a rank of these are the ones that we think, the 5 that we think are most qualified. These are the next 5. These are the next 5.
Right,
yes.
exactly.
But you're not drawing a line there. It's council can
Right.
look at them.
Well, and it'd be, I think, important for us to make a decision to understand how many we're targeting to be on the committee itself. Because if we want the committee to exist, to consist of a good number of qualified individuals, and that number is less than 7, then we've got some discussions that we have to have. If it's more than 10, that's a different set of discussions. The bigger the number gets, the more complicated this thing gets.
I mean, I'll throw out my opinion is somewhere between, say, 5 and 9, either 5, 7, or 9.
Yeah.
I mean, probably around 5 to 7. If you had 5 hard, guys that are people that are real serious, or 7, but you get much past that, and it's going to be tough to get any work done. But again, I don't know if that's a decision that's made after you see. You may come in and get so many qualified people. You may want, you may bring it to us and say, "Hey, I know you said 7, but you might want to consider 9 because there's some really great folks out here."
And that is why we left that open to see what we would get, what applications we get, for you all to determine, well, these are really qualified people or not so many qualified people. It was to give you more flexibility to determine the number once you see the applications, the amount of applications, and the qualifications on the applications. It was to give you flexibility to determine.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, trying to make sure that we deliver a product that is exactly what you want. So if you look on page 2 of the ordinance, particularly 2D, the way this is set up is that it was anticipated that of the list of applicants, staff would in fact undertake not a ranking process, but a culling process where there would be individuals that would be removed. If that's not what the council wants and instead wants a ranking process, then I would recommend that D be modified, and everywhere you see culling, it needs to be ranking, and shall undertake a ranking process. And following that ranking process, city staff shall submit to the council a ranked list of qualified citizens.
you know what, and I use that term, so I want to make sure, though, that we don't change something just because if I use the wrong term. Still want to go back to what the right thing would be to do. I don't know if it's the city staff calls them, but then also make sure it's transparent of who else is on there, where the council has flexibility to, if you call 3 people, but the council as a whole feels like, well, one of those persons could kind of fit in there. Does that make sense?
It does. In my head, when I was reviewing this, the expectation, at least that I had, is if there were individuals that city staff did not believe candidly would be advantageous to moving the process forward of being on this committee, you wouldn't see them. That literally you would see a list that would be less than that, and then you would go through the deliberative process of determining that final panel. That was at least what I understood the vision to be. If that's not what the council has in mind, you want to get a look at everybody that submits an application. That is a little different.
Yeah, just in Matt, but I'd want to see what the council's take on that, because they may want to see, be able to at least see who's on there. That way, no one could say there's any politics involved.
Then we
Yeah,
probably
I
need to
think
change it.
I think a polling should be done by the staff, because anything that's ranked anyway would be public information as it is. If we rank someone, wouldn't that be public too if it's given to the council? Yeah, I think if there was a ranking, it should be done by us.
Okay. Well, maybe what is documented to us would be the cold list.
Right.
But also we have access to the entire list, so we at least know who applied. Does that make sense? Would that be the right way to do it? Or?
I understand that.
So doesn't that bring us back to what I said originally? You'll get all of them that pass the criteria that's been predetermined. You'll get the ones that don't as well, and we'll let you know who they are.
Yeah, we'll still be aware of it.
But no slate will be coming through. It'll be the number actually the word slate is probably wrong. There'll be no recommendations by staff as to whom better fulfills the role than anybody else.
But I think the next step that the council would need to decide the appropriate number, look at the qualifications, and can we get this job done in 5, 7?
Right. That's right.
Joe?
So Kathleen, real quick before I forget about it, I want to make sure you understand, I appreciate the effort that you put into this, the research that you did and stuff like that, because you certainly did give the council an option that we needed to consider. I would agree 100% with the reason we did this, the motivations, all that kind of stuff, because it has been food for thought. While the bond was passed, 5 months ago, the reality is we've been doing a lot of other things to get ready to act on the fact that the bond was approved, and we couldn't do anything day one. If we could have gotten the committee together earlier, that might have been an advantage, but we haven't lost any ground yet. So I just want to say I appreciate all your hard work. I'd also offer up a motion right now that, given the fact that this seems to be getting more complicated, not less,
Yep.
I would just like to say that we take we make the composition of this committee the traditional mechanism, have the council appoint somebody from each position, and allow the mayor to do the same, and not adopt this more complicated model.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we're clear on the motion. We have a motion by Councilmember Longoria with a second from Councilmember Hewitt. Any discussion?
I just say, I think the last hour of discussion shows that it's a complicated issue, and maybe we have overcomplicated it. We've directed stuff before in the past, and it's not, unfortunately, for the folks that have to do the work. We've 180'd before, and I just think that it's really gotten really in the weeds.
Point of order. I had tried to make a motion a few minutes ago in support of this and was stopped before I got to make the motion, and then now another motion has been made. So for point of order, does somebody, whoever gets how does that work? Because I had tried to make a motion.
Right. So in the parliamentary context, though, what needs to have happened before the motion is deemed pending before the tribunal, there does have to be a second. If there wasn't a second, understanding that you're concerned that you were interrupted and weren't allowed for there to be a second. But at this point right now, the motion second does have the floor.
And I'll apologize. I do remember you did say but I had a couple of folks that wanted to still speak.
It's a fair
I did allow them,
point.
so I will take the the blame on that. Councilmember Thurman.
Well, I don't want to get about this surreptitiously. I will, if Bert will withdraw the second, I will withdraw my motion, and we can go to your motion first, Karen.
Is that in fact what you're doing? Right
Well, if Bert agrees with that.
I'd say we vote on what's on the table and see what happens, but, I mean, I don't want to be unfortunate.
I think we're going to take both votes anyway,
yeah.
Karen. If you don't mind, we can just go ahead with what's on the table.
Okay. In discussion on this motion in a second, I just, again, this is different than other committees. This is spending taxpayer dollars, which is very much a difference than when you're just directing looks and feel and private dollars. So, you know my position on it. So, any other discussion?
Maybe a question to Joe's motion there. Maybe you could please clarify it as to how we're going to proceed in actually making these nominations or proposals of appointment. Are we going to use the list that we have in front of us or that's been presented so far, or?
We certainly could do that, Bill, because obviously we all get to pick the person that we want to appoint. And now we've just got a great list. I mean, I heard good representation from every single district, so there's a great candidate list right there. So I would imagine that it would make a lot of sense for us to do that, but I don't want to dictate that. I just want to say, let's do it the way we always do it.
Well, we've gone through this whole process that Kathy's come up with here and solicited these 17 names, people who are specifically interested in this particular body here. I would hesitate at this point in time to go outside of that list, and which would go back to our original discussion. Are we going to end up with political appointments, or are we going to end up with this process here, people who have already been, or who've already submitted their qualifications? I'd hate to trash this whole process that we've been through for.
Yeah, I'm not trying to trash anything. I'm trying to make a decision on how to manage this in an easier way.
Well, I understand that. But we've gone through this, and I just want to understand the motion that you're making, if you're going to clarify it, with the use of the existing list that we have already or not.
My motion is to support the same mechanism that we have for all our other committees, with the exception of MDAC and Milton Grows Green.
Okay.
So you're saying we could go outside of this list that we already have?
Could use the list, or
you do whatever you want as a council member.
Yeah, and obviously that puts the number at 7.
Correct.
For the committee. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I've got a motion and a second, as read in by Councilmember Longoria and second by Councilmember Hewitt. Any more discussion? If not, Bat?
I'll just say I'll probably vote with that because that was the first way I was going to go. So we'll see what happens.
All right.
But I'm flexible too.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say aye. Nay. All right. I believe that failed 4-3. So, Councilmember Thurman,
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve agenda item number 17-068, consideration of an ordinance creating the Milton Green Space Advisory Committee, with an emphasis being placed on the fact that all geographic areas of the city are represented on this committee, whether or not it have 5, 7, or 9 members.
Second the motion.
okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Thurman, as read into the record, a second from Councilmember Lusk. Any discussion? Rick?
Oh, sorry.
Yep. Question, Karen, would you be willing to add in there, you use the terms geographic area, would you put in there at least 1 member per district to ensure representation?
I mean, I think it's important to have 1 member from each area of the city, and that's naturally you're going to have at least 1 from the district. Like I said earlier, I don't think if you live on the south side or the north side of Wood Road, it really makes a difference.
Yeah, I don't think.
Area. But so I really think it's important that we have somebody from the Deerfield area, from the Crabapple area, from the Birmingham area, and all the other areas all represented on this committee, whether or not it be, if we have to go to 9 members to get them all areas and get the quality people on it, we'll go to 9 members.
And those discussions will go as we have the list or the qualified folks. Okay.
Did you cap it at 9? You said 5, 7, or 9. What was that about?
Well, that's just what staff had recommended, no more than 9. But if we need to go to 11, then that's fine. So however many we need in order to.
I don't recommended anything.
Right now,
I
it's
don't know that it has to
open
be, but it's open
on the
right now.
ordinance. Right now, the number is open to allow for flexibility.
And the council's okay. I mean, again, this hasn't been voted on, but my thoughts would be we'd wait and see what, how many.
What it is.
I didn't view the statement as part of the motion. I thought it was just simply an explanation.
Right,
Yes.
right. The motion right now is not, it's just, okay. All right, so I have a motion, a second. Any more discussion?
So the motion, to clarify, the motion is just geographic, doesn't say anything in regards to district.
Geographic, all areas.
Okay, so my discussion on that is I'd like to see it by district, so I'm not going to vote for this. But if we do have a motion on this that is by district, then I will vote for that.
So again, I guess,
How about to that point, and I've said it before, that it would be at least one member from each district, assuming all things are equal, that,
I am
you're
fine with that,
qualified candidates.
But I don't want the Deerfield area not to be representative or the Crabapple area not to have a representative, because both the people that are from my district happen to live in the northern part of the district. I want to make sure that, all areas of the city are actually represented.
but I guess what I would say is I think we get to that point when we look at the whole slate, but if we are specific, unless we're going to name all the geographic areas, I think if we say district, then that includes that, and then we can look at when we see the map and we're making the choices if this motion goes through. So I would ask,
Well,
would you make a friendly?
I will amend my motion, if he'll amend the second, to say at least one a member from each district with all geographic areas of the city represented as best as possible.
Okay.
Second that.
Okay, I have a motion and from Councilmember Thurman, a second from Councilmember Lusk as read. Is staff clear on that motion?
Mr. Mayor, just to confirm, because that does impact, I think, probably 2H. So just to confirm, the motion would be to adopt the ordinance as presented, but with the caveat that there be at least one member from each district and with all geographic areas of the city represented
As best
as is possible. I understand it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that and it is 2H.
Okay. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Okay, sorry. Did you get that vote, Sudi? Okay. All right. Thank you. Bottom line, healthy discussion, and I think we're all going to obviously, hopefully this committee will do what's the best interest of Milton.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kath. All right, we don't have any items under new business. Anything on council you want to report on?
We got an Easter egg hunt Saturday?
Yep. Steve, you want to do staff reports?
I have Councilor.
All right, hold on. Matt's got something.
I just want to say, Carter, good job on the decorating of the roundabout up at Hopewell, Birmingham, which was great. And I also want to thank staff's response as well to the tree that was leaning over on Hopewell Road. South of that, I don't know if you guys saw that, but it was, a tree had fallen over and was leaning against another tree that was falling over with the roots coming out and everything, and it was going to take out several cars. And I made a quick phone call and to the city general phone number, and staff was very responsive on that and got that taken care of. Very dangerous situation. Just want to say good job and jumping on that.
And the one on Providence
Thank you
Road.
for getting it to our attention.
Across Providence Road.
Yep.
Got that all on
No,
Roddy. He responded to that.
well,
Got that all on Roddy. He was the man
Okay.
on that one.
well, now I'll just have to, I'll have to, in all transparency, have to admit I got a call from a citizen on that, and but by the time before I had a chance to call anybody or whatever, then I got a message back from that citizen praising me, going, Just call the mayor and it gets taken care of.
Take credit, Joe.
I'm not taking, no, I'm having to.
Take it where you can get it.
All right, Bill?
In the good work department, I'd like to commend the city manager and staff for keeping our bypass road over here on schedule. And it looks like they could wrap that up in short order if they keep on at the same pace that they're going on right now. So, good work, all.
Okay. All right, Steve?
The Easter egg hunt was brought up. That is this Saturday, the 15th, 10 to 12 in Friendship Park. And Earth Day is the following Saturday, and I believe that it's here. So, and the
28th?
The following week, the 29th, is going to be the party on the plaza.
Right.
So they're each in succession order from each Saturday. So Easter egg hunt, Earth Day, and then the party on the plaza.
Okay. All right.
We could do. Why don't we do fire communications? If it's all right with you, Mayor, I'd like to just put that off.
Okay.
But if we could do fire, that'd be great.
Okay.
Carter's looking a little bit hurt there.
Carter has us a pretty map to look at.
He's ready to go.
Mayor, Council, good evening. What I wanted to report is just a couple of quick things. One of our firefighters, our newer firefighters, owns a search and rescue dog. And he just recently completed all the training and certifications that go along with that as a handler, as well as a dog completing those certifications. He has now been accepted as part of the Georgia State Search and Rescue Team.
Awesome.
And that dog is now available to us here in the city of Milton. It does not cost us anything. It's all through grant funds that are awarded through the state. It covers all his vet bills, feedings, training, everything. Even deployments are covered by the GSAR team, or the state of Georgia. That dog is now can be brought to the station by the handler, the firefighter. It stays in a kennel, and he gets to train with it. And then if there's a need for that dog, he can go ahead and be deployed and handle any type of search and rescue. It's not a cadaver dog. It's nothing like a canine that police have. It's simply a search and rescue dog that can assist us with lost children, Alzheimer's patients, and which we've had a couple of in the last couple of years. So this dog would be available to us at no cost. So, which I think is a great resource for us in the community.
That's excellent.
Okay.
One of the other things with your passage of the pension ordinance this evening, I can confirm that we have 4 of our firefighters will be leaving by the end of the month and early May. A battalion chief, a captain, an FAO, and a firefighter will be retiring now that this plan has been approved. And we are halfway through our MDA collections, our boot drive, and we have reached over the $40,000 mark at this point.
That's awesome.
So we are well ahead of where we were last year, and I hope the next time I report to you that we are in the $80,000 range and above. So, and that's all I have this evening. If you have any questions for me.
Okay. Any questions? As always, thank you and your guys for keeping us safe. Carter, you want a couple words?
I wasn't trying to exclude you, Carter. I thought you'd take the gift.
Oh, Councilman Lusk had such a perfect segue into just real quick what I was going to throw up. Dave, if you'll go back. I was just going to give you a brief summary of where we are on the Heritage Walk. The blank screen. What they've been working on here this week is the connection of McFarland Walk, the realignment of the entrance of McFarland to the Brayburn subdivision with Heritage Walk. See there in the purple or blue, darker color, is the section opened up this week. So they'll be paving tomorrow and hopefully wrap that up tomorrow and open that up on Wednesday. So that connection will get Branyan, Lacombe, and McFarland all connected to the Heritage Walk section. They are going to go ahead and Heritage Walk here in front of City Hall, and that'll take the pavement all the way over to Itasca, but they're not going to open that immediately. So they've got some work to do at the intersection of Heritage Walk and Itasca which is shown there in the orange color between the red and the yellow. And as soon as they get that intersection lowered, they've got a little bit of elevation work to do there. They will open this section in front of City Hall. So we'll have Heritage Walk open all the way over to Itasca. And right now, weather dependent, they're expecting that to happen probably in the next month or so. So then they'll continue on with that section in the yellow, followed up by the completion of the roundabouts, which you see in the orange, and the intersection will be the final piece that they do. The roundabouts and Heritage Walk, they are expecting to be done by the end of the year. The intersection work may be delayed slightly due to the weather, but they're still pushing to get all of this work done by December of this year. So with my brief time that's been allotted tonight, I just wanted to give you up on that particular project, since it's one that affects all of us here at City Hall.
Okay. Thank you, Carter. If I have a motion to, we move into executive session to discuss land acquisition.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Do I have a motion that we reconvene?
Second. Yes.
Yes.
We have a motion and a
So
second
moved.
to reconvene. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's,
I'll move to adjourn the regular meeting.
have a motion and I need a second to adjourn. I'll second that. I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimous also, Sudi.